Across centuries and continents, millions of lives were stolen, traded, and forced into bondage. Their stories survive not only in archives and memory, but in museums. These spaces do more than preserve history. They confront us with truth, challenging us to understand a past that is anything but distant. This is a journey to the places that keep these stories alive, from the shores of Africa to the plantations of the Americas and the port cities of Europe. This is a global story of loss, resilience, and the fight for remembrance. Our journey begins in Africa, on Gorée Island in Senegal. Here, at the House of Slaves, stands the door of no return. For many, this was the final point of contact with home. Gorée Island stands as a powerful symbol of separation, families torn apart, futures erased. The narrow stone corridors echo with a painful silence, a last glimpse of a homeland they would never see again. The site is a pilgrimage for many, a place to honor the countless souls who passed through its gates. Further down the coast in Ghana sit the Elmina and Cape Coast castles. From the outside, they look like European fortresses built to project power. But their true purpose was far more sinister. They were designed not for defense, but for profit. Beneath their walls, in suffocating, lightless dungeons, human beings were held in unimaginable conditions before being forced onto ships. The stark contrast between the bright coastal sunlight above and the darkness below reveals the brutal reality of this trade. These castles were factories of dehumanization, the first stop on a horrifying journey. In Ouidah, Benin, the entire landscape tells the story. It's a path, now known as the Slave Route, stretches for miles from the town center to the Atlantic Ocean. It's marked by monuments and symbols representing the stages of capture, sale, and embarkation. Ouidah's history is complex. It tells a story not only of European capture, but of local complicity, fierce resistance, and finally, of remembrance. Walking this path is a somber experience, retracing the final steps of so many on their native soil. Packed into the hulls of ships, with barely room to move, millions were subjected to disease, violence, and despair. and culture makes a powerful statement. Slavery is not just a chapter in American history, it is a foundational element. The museum's journey begins in the lower galleries, in darkness, surrounded by artifacts of the trade. Shackles, a slave cabin, a ship's manifest. As you ascend through the museum, the story unfolds, tracing the legacy of slavery through segregation, the civil rights movement, and the ongoing struggles for justice and equality. It connects the past directly to the present, showing how these histories continue to shape society today. Brazil received more enslaved Africans than any other country in the Americas, a fact laid bare at the Valongo Wharf archaeological site in Rio de Janeiro. For decades, this history was literally buried beneath the city's modern streets. Unearthed during construction work, the wharf is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It was the largest arrival point for enslaved Africans in the world. Its rediscovery has forced a national reckoning with a past that many had tried to forget, exposing a buried truth at the heart of a global city. Throughout the Caribbean, from Jamaica to Barbados, the landscape was engineered for one purpose: the mass production of sugar, powered by forced labor. The wealth generated here fueled empires. Today, museums and memorial sites across the islands tell the stories of this brutal system. But they also tell stories of incredible resilience, constant rebellion, and the long, hard-won fight for emancipation. They honored the spirit of those who resisted their bondage and forged new cultures and identities in the face of unimaginable oppression. The profits of this brutal trade flowed back to Europe, building cities and fortunes. In Liverpool, England, the International Slavery Museum sits on the very docks where slave ships were once built, financed, and repaired. Liverpool was a major hub of the transatlantic slave trade, and the museum confronts this legacy head-on. It doesn't shy away from detailing the city's central role in human trafficking, explaining how the trade in enslaved people was intrinsically linked to the trade in goods like sugar, cotton, and tobacco, fueling the Industrial Revolution and enriching the nation. Similarly, in France, port cities like Nantes and Bordeaux grew wealthy from their involvement in the slave trade. For a long time, this history was downplayed or ignored, but now memorials have been erected along the riverfronts. The names of the ships and the voyagers are engraved in public spaces, forcing a confrontation with a concealed past. Here, memory becomes an act of accountability. A way for these cities to acknowledge the source of their historic wealth and honor the victims of the trade they facilitated. So why do these museums matter so much today? They are not neutral spaces for quiet contemplation. They are active sites of education, confrontation, and healing. They challenge denial and dismantle comforting myths. By giving names, faces, and stories to the millions who were systematically dehumanized, they humanize statistics. They are places where students learn a history that is often omitted from textbooks, where families can trace their ancestry, and where visitors are asked not only to remember the past, but to respond to it in the present. They ask us to consider how the legacies of slavery continue to manifest as inequality and injustice today. The past is never truly past. It echoes in our present, shaping our world in ways we are only beginning to understand. As long as these museums stand, as long as these stories are told, the voices of the enslaved continue to speak across the generations. They call out from the dungeons of Cape Coast, from the sugarcane fields of Louisiana, from the depths of the Atlantic. They demand remembrance, they demand truth, and they demand a justice that is long overdue. Their memory is not a monument to despair, but a call to action for a better, more equitable world.